I'm catching up here in this video with some updates regarding defense within the last months and at the scale for the first third of 2018. As we all know, the defense policies are very important when it comes to developing strategies for counterterrorism and also involving the peacekeeping process. The first thing I want to speak about, and we all know what happened in Syria regarding the chemical weapon supposed attack. Besides that, we have to also highlight that the US Navy ramped up surveillance off Syrian coast amid the recent tensions, and that means that the P-8A MPAs have ramped up to the US Navy surveillance of Russian and Syrian deployment in Syria, and that's how we link it with the events that happened further during the month of April, by the fact that the operations came amid the expectation that President Trump was launching the missile strikes to punish the Syrian regime for an apparent chemical weapons attack on Douma, the last rebel-held town in the eastern Ghouta region. The U.S. Navy Boeing P-8A Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft MPAs have begun flying in the near-continuous surveillance missions of the coast of Syria as the tension is rising in the eastern Mediterranean, as we all know. And the stepping up of the patrols by the aircraft based on the US Naval Station in Sigonella, Sicily, has been spotted by open-source monitoring on air traffic in the region. Tracking of the ADS-B transponder data from the US aircraft shows that from early on April the 11th, the P-8A aircraft flew 4 sorties from their Sicilian base over to the eastern Mediterranean that day, and the aircraft were then seen flying in the racetrack patterns along the Syrian coast throughout the day. Among other things to mention on the news in another context is the F-35 achieving developmental flight testing milestone. As we know, Lockheed Martin and the F-35 Joint Program Office, the JPO, have completed developmental flight testing of the F-35 Lightning II, the Program 2, which is the Joint Strike Fighter, JSF, that was announced on April the 12th. And the milestone, which was slightly delayed from the end of 2017, was achieved about 17 years approximately, with 60 billion US dollars after the system design and development, the SDD phase of the international JSF program that was launched in 2001, and more than 11 years after the flight testing that has begun in late 2006. As noted by Lockheed Martin, since the aircraft AA-1 took to the skies for the very first time in December 2006, the F-35 flight test program has conducted more than 92,000 sorties spanning over 17,000 hours. Also important to mention that Spanish and Saudis signed a naval systems and weapon deal. So the Saudi Arabian government has signed an agreement with Spain's Navantia for 5 Avante 2200 corvettes to be used by the Royal Saudi Naval Forces. During the visit to Spain by the Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz, there was a letter of intent that was signed between Saudi Arabia and Navantia for the design and construction of the corvettes, including the combat management systems, and the memorandum of agreement was also signed between the defense company of the Saudi Arabian military industries and Navantia to create a joint venture to deliver the vessels. Other thing I want to speak about also is when we speak about new strategies and militaries that have been evolving within the beginning of Trump's era, we can also speak about the overmatched capabilities for battlefield dominance, and that's a very important thing that has been spoken about at the level of the DoD, and that can also be transmitted to the topics spoken about the CTED at the United Nations level, because it's very important that a force thinks smart and strikes hard by integrating with with its capability to help forces going beyond just firepower to smaller system to a clear advantage. And then again, this is a thing and facts to mention when we speak about deployment and action of the army. And it's very important to sharpen more and more the policies when it comes to how we can develop the engineering concepts within this context of action. Going back to the US, also approving marketing license in support to the Taiwanese submarine program. So there will be a marketing license that allows the US industry to transfer submarine-related expertise to Taiwan. Taiwan has also launched a program to build up to 8 diesel-electric submarines. So State Department official told the media that the US government is reviewing Taiwan's defense requirements on an ongoing basis, and that the US sales of defense articles and services are guided by the Taiwan Relations Act and based on an assessment of Taiwan's defense needs and in accordance with procedures established by law. So Taiwan Submarine Development Program is led to two states-owned organizations, the National Chongqing Institute of Science and Technology and the Naval Shipbuilders CSBC Corporation. Also to mention briefly on the news, the fact that the MiJ-31, Kinzhals and Su-57s fly over the Red Square during the Victory Day Parade in May. On April the 9th, of course, we have noticed the pair of strike aircraft that flew during the first rehearsal for the Victory Days parade in Moscow for May the 9th. Very important also to mention that the Indian industry lined up in support with the US-2I procurement from Japan, and this is an inter-Asian development policy that has seen India's Mahindra Defense announcing earlier on April that has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Japan's Shin Marua industry to collaborate on the Shin Marua US-2I amphibian aircraft that is being procured by the Indian government. Under the terms of the MOU, the two sides would work together on maintenance, repair, and overhaul work, as well as the possible manufacturing and assembling of structural parts and components for the aircrafts. Another idea that I can bring also when it comes to intelligence in the army is the policy when it comes to the defense think tank is the confining the space weapon and how to work to get smarter confined space weapon, including the ultra quiet, the compact length techniques. Get back to the Americas. I'm now speaking about the US DoD halting of the F-35 deliveries over the contractual dispute. So there is a US DoD and two international customers that are refusing to accept any new F-35s. The aircraft refusal stem from a contractual dispute with the manufacturer, which is Lockheed Martin. So the United States and two international customers have refused to accept any new Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning Joint Strike Fighters, the JSF combat aircraft, which is due, of course, to the contractual dispute with the manufacturer, and the dispute which reportedly centers around who should pay the cost of repair to an earlier issue that caused the suspension of deliveries in 2017 has seen the Pentagon halt all the new deliveries for itself, with at least two undisclosed customers following suits. Pentagon always, and here speaking about it nearing the multi-year Osprey deal while eyeing for foreign sales, and the fact that the US DoD and Bell Boeing are nearing within the same context a new multi-year procurement deal for the V-22 Osprey tiltrotor, with US officials hoping it could spur more FMS. So the U.S. Department of State, the DoD, is nearing another multi-year procurement agreement for its Bell Boeing V-22 Osprey multi-trotor, as I say, the aircraft, and hopes to leverage lower costs for the deal in order to book more foreign military sales orders. This is also slowing the new missions for the V-22 in another context of action. Also, very important to mention that there is the USCG taking Novolism approach to acquire the SUAS. That's very important that the US Coast Guard is buying a small unnamed aircraft's capability for its national security cutters, the NCS, through an atypical approach that means to reduce acquisition risk as much as possible. Very important to speak about the policy of acquisitions when it comes to how to develop the procedures, when it comes to the policy of the Coast Guard as well within this context. The efforts were successful and the SUAS helped Stratton on multiple interdictions missions and assisted the USCG in the past to refine the concept of operation and requirements of a request for proposals, which the USCG released earlier this year. It was in February. Also, when we speak about the military news in Europe, I want to mention that Germans and Dutch integrated the GBAD, and here I want to speak also on another topic about the German Trident procurement moving forward with the US government's approval. So the US State Department has approved the sale to Germany of 4 Northrop Grumman MQ-4 Triton UASS's. So the Trident will meet Germany's SIGINT requirements following the demise of the Eurohawk program, as we all know. On other news, the Czech has gripped the basically the gain air-to-ground capability when it comes to the MS-20 software upgrade that will give an ACR air component. Involving the JAS-39C/D Gripens, which is an air-to-ground capability. Ukraine also has received the Polish BMP-1 AKI-FV. Very important to mention that. They have taken a delivery of a specified number of these infantry fighting vehicles from the Polish company Wrotplast. Very important also to mention here when we speak always about Europe, about the German army proposing the Project Plan 2023. So basically the German army is proposing a project around 5 billion euros, which is equivalent of $6.2 billion for the army equipment plan called Project Plan 2023, starting as of 2019. And under the new plan, the German army would retain its current 3 divisions, with one to be fully modernized and digitized by 2027, and followed by another one, 2 others, for 2032. Australia received first full combat F-35As. That's news in the Asian Pacific, as well as we must mention that the Thai Marines have procured Elbit howitzers. When it comes to China, very important to mention that Chinese Yard launches the final Type C-13B for Bangladesh, another inter-Asian cooperation. And also the fact that the United Arab Emirates unveiled the training center, which is shown in several satellite images since September 2017, which is an already completed military training complex west of Abu Dhabi city, and that contains a seaport, an oil terminal, high-rise area, support area, a stadium, airports, and airports. So this is it when it comes here to the policy of defense. I want to conclude about Australia appointing first defense expert advocate. So the former Australian Defense Minister David Johnston has been appointed for the position of the first defense expert advocate of Australia, and the role will help connect Australian industry to overseas governments and defense forces. Stay tuned.